What's up everyone, Thralls Metal here once again. I'm Necrotic Nick and I have an album review for you. So one that I definitely wanted to check out for the week of the 21st of January was the newest offering from Druid Lord, Relics of the Dead. This again comes out on the 21st of January on Hell's Headbangers Records. This band formed in 2010 in Orlando, Florida. This is their third full-length release, and this is the first time I've actually jammed these guys, another first listen for this year. And I've honestly seen their albums floating around, especially in Hell's Headbangers distro, where I lurk very frequently. I just never pulled the trigger on one of their releases, but I figured with a new release coming up, I can review that and then go back and get their stuff if I liked it, which, spoiler alert, I did like it, and I went back and got some of their stuff, and some other shit too, because I'm me. Now this band features ex-members of Acheron and Incubus, not that Incubus that was very popular with the Pardon Me and all that stuff. I actually kind of like them still. But the Incubus that turned into a program later that was more death thrash. And a couple of these guys actually did some time in Massacre as live members too. So these guys have a nice Florida pedigree. But this sounds nothing like any of those bands, especially the other Incubus that didn't turn into a program. This is some grimy, filthy death doom. The opening track and title track, first off, when the synths come in, because there are some really cool horror synths in here, the fact that they're kind of isolated and just the tone they have makes me feel like I'm at the starting screen of a Castlevania game. And honestly, it kind of sets the mood. I mean, I love Castlevania. It's a great fucking game. But when you get into the music, it pretty much opens up in fiercely incantation fashion. Blast beats, dirty tremolo riffs, but then it takes a hard turn to the death doom, slow chugs, really just grimy overall sound. The vocals on here, I think, are really cool because they're not generally the hollow, cavernous vocals that you hear in a lot of death doom. They're more clear and enunciated, but they're still gurgly and kind of grimy. There's a good low and highs in there. Kind of reminds me a lot of Nick Holmes, honestly. And there's a fair amount of music on here that has a bit of that UK death doom sound, a la Paradise Lost and My Dying Bride, but definitely a lot of different influences there. Like there's some Mental Funeral-esque moments on here. There's also stuff that is fiercely Hooded Menace-ish. And when you get to the end of this album, you are greeted to some flat-out funeral doom, especially the song Monarch Macabre, which sounds like a flat-out funeral dirge. The melody screams, somebody died and we are carrying him across to a mausoleum that's located in the middle of a swamp that's populated full of zombie alligators or some shit. I don't know. It's creepy, but it's kind of melancholy. But that's kind of the cool thing about this album is, while it is flat out death doom pretty much across the board, there are a lot of different elements that come into play. Mangled as the Hideous Feed, which sounds like a straight up old school death metal song, kind of is. It kind of takes a nice, like, kind of obituary type groove to it. Solid main riff. It has some death doomy sections, but the whole kind of feel of the song is mostly just straight up old school death metal. And then Immolated into Ashes kind of works its way in between like long funeral doom sections where it's just single chords syncopated with slow drum beats and then flat out riffy death doom, and kind of just balancing between there. And holy shit, the overall feel is just doomy and gross. It's kind of like doing laps in the pool at the end of Poltergeist. You know how Joe Beth Williams was swimming around in there? Those are real corpses. Little factoid there. Pretty fucked up of Steven Spielberg to put it in there, or Toby Hooper, take your pick. They were kind of both involved. Either way, yeah, like doing laps in that and that thick, muddy, nasty shit and then sliding back down into all the corpses. That is the feel of Festering Tombs. But I like that this isn't all slow too. There's a lot of moments where they just bring in blast beats, nasty tremolo riffs, and then sort of kind of bounce them back and forth between the big slow doomy moments. You get a lot of cool dynamic shifts, and the transitions are fucking seamless on here. This can go from straight up like old school Morbid Angel to flat out Disma levels of slow and heavy. And one of the things that makes this a really solid listen overall is the fact that the lead guitars are so prominent on here. First off, I have to say the production here is really good and a little different for death doom, at least most of the death doom that I listen to. This isn't very cavernous and it isn't very reverb drenched. There's just enough on there to kind of fill out the sound, but this isn't trying to sound muffled or just extra echoey at all, like it was recorded at the bottom of a well. This sounds like it was recorded in a studio. Like the vocals are very clear, the guitars, again, huge sounding, but not drenched in reverb, and There's like a tremendous amount of reverb on the drums, so the snare doesn't echo on into eternity. So it's a little bit different for at least most of the death doom that I listen to. And that kind of circles back to the lead guitars I was bringing up. The lead guitars come across as very crisp and clear on here. Now, it's not like Worm, where the solos are kind of virtuoso-esque, like Yngwie Malmsteen found his way into the studio and said, I want to make this death doom moment a little bit prettier. I don't think that's how he sounds, but that's the go-to accent that I had for him. But the leads on here really complement the music well. But it's not just solos on here. Lead play in general, whether it's just a little bit to complement a part, like a little lead melody on top of the main riff, or whether they're doing the syncopated chugs and they're just adding a really creepy tremolo on top of it, or flat out harmonies. Again, back to Festering Tombs, that song has some harmonies on there that really just kind of accentuate how gloomy and dreary that song is. And it was already gloomy and dreary without those harmonies, but man, that one just made it feel even darker. And overall, this kind of like works into the whole thing that the songwriting on here is really good. I like all the different dynamics they explore. The opening track starting off as a more death metal track, moving into death doom, and then it's one of the few ones that actually throws in some dissonant riffs with some really cool cymbal accents, and even some flat-out triplet chugs on that one. And then you get to a song like Immolated in Ashes, which starts off very dreary, clean harmonies to start it off, and it kind of slowly builds up the song, and then towards the end it goes full-bore death metal before settling back into that death doom section again. And that all kind of really works well. You get different styles of song building in there. And of course, atmosphere. Atmosphere is always a huge thing with death doom, and they do it well, but they do it kind of sparsely. This is mostly music. They're not gonna just, let the ambiance sort of take over. You have some synths on here that do complement it pretty well, but they're used a little bit more sparsely. And you do have some movie samples that sound like they're from like satanic flicks from the 1970s or something like that. They work. They kind of add just that moment, and they're not overdone. Hell, the last track is a minute-long outro called Ethereal Decay, which sounds like it was spliced straight from a Fulci flick. It works. I kind of wish that wasn't the closer. I was kind of hoping that the closer would be even more of the awesome death doom that I was hearing on the rest of the album. But, it was still pretty cool. It kind of fit with it. I mean, that is kind of how it opened too, so closing it that way, not a big gripe. Even the interlude Nightside Conjuring is actually pretty good. There's a little audio sample, again, from some, satanic flick from the 70s, I would assume, but you get some flamenco-ish guitars, and it sounds kind of light and airy at first, but then you add the dreary sort of lead melodies on top, and all of a sudden it takes on a very sinister sound, but it's kind of interesting to just hear that shift. But again, for most of this album, they're letting the music create the atmosphere. They're not throwing in a lot of extra stuff, which honestly, with all the fucking awesome riffs on here, there's not a lot of room for extra stuff. You just let the riffs breathe and let them take over the songs because they're fucking good. If I was to knock this album on anything, and it would be very minor, is there might be a few too many sections where they kind of just do that slow syncopated chug a little bit too much, like where they could have been squeezing in more distinct riffs, because some of those slow chuggy sections seem like they're just kind of pasted in there to kind of move the song along to the next more creative riff. They're good, but I kind of got tired of hearing, chug, 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 and for every one of those is, a beat behind it. I mean, it's pretty common in death doom, but I think it was maybe overused a little bit on some tracks, but outside of that, I have nothing but good things to say about this album, because holy shit, this is a bleak, ugly motherfucker of an album. So overall, I'm gonna give this 4 stars. This is a fucking banger. I had not really jammed this band before. I'd only heard like maybe an individual track before, and I liked it, but this album as a whole really flows well. I love the riffs. Again, atmosphere created by mostly the music and just a little bit of extra stuff. I like that they incorporated some straight up funeral doom in here. There's also straight up just old school death metal. It really kind of just all works together. And again, the lead work on here, I think, really adds so much to this. It just makes it that much more creepy. And that's the overall feel I think you want for death doom. Creepy and oppressive and occasionally brutal. And they pretty much checked off all of that shit here. I may have spoiled this by saying that I already ordered this. I also ordered the album before this too, just for good measure. But I've ordered stuff that I've given lower scores to because I'm a compulsive buyer. And if you don't get that by now, you haven't been watching my collection updates. I strongly recommend this. If you are a Death Doom fan, I would say this is a must listen because this has so many just killer fucking songs on it. Lots of different influences, slightly different production. It's just a killer Death Doom album. And yeah, I don't know what else to say other than it's killer, it's Death Doom, and you should check it out. So if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up. And if you are new to the channel, subscribe because we do stuff like this all the time. We are also on Patreon. If you would like to help us out there, there'll be a link down below. T-shirts will be coming soon. We will definitely be making an announcement for it, as well as a giveaway in said announcement, because we are on the precipice of 10,000 subscribers, which is fucking ridiculous. Thank you guys so much for getting us to this point and beyond, hopefully. We're looking forward to cranking out more videos. We definitely want to do some more retro reviews in the future. Definitely looking forward to doing the Carcass ranking. That's going to be a fuck ton of fun. I've had a lot of fun jamming some Carcass here lately. But yeah, all sorts of stuff we are working on. And once again, thank you all so much, and we will catch you later.